Are you ready for some mighty Marvel updates? Because they have been coming at us pretty fast. Over the last couple of days, we've got multiple MCU updates, including Spider-Man 4, more appearances of Mephisto, some Daredevil news, and Sentry. So let's dive into all the news. Well, welcome to today's Mighty Marvel Update. We've got a good bit of news from the MCU, and I think it's a pretty good time to be a fan. We're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming Agatha series and Mephisto potentially being part of that, with Sacha Baron Cohen playing the character. We're also going to talk about what Tom Rothman had to say about Spider-Man 4, Charlie Cox and the massive Daredevil shooting schedule that's coming our way next year, and a follow-up to some of that Sentry news because there might be a solo project in the works. Let's start off with Agatha. Now, earlier this year, a very, very interesting rumor was making the rounds, which seemed to indicate that Sacha Baron Cohen would play Mephisto in Ironheart. We actually talked about that a little bit, and it's linked down below. Now, this news has still not been confirmed, unfortunately, but most people feel like this might be a perfect casting for the character, and many of us hope it's absolutely true. It does make a lot of sense, because Ironheart is supposed to feature a clash between technology and magic, with the Hood striking a deal with the demon to acquire the powers he needs to take on Ironheart. Now, you have to believe that Mephisto has a much bigger role in the MCU moving forward, and it seems that he will appear again in Agatha, Coven of Chaos. Now, this is a rumor and doesn't come from anybody official at Marvel, so we want to make sure that that's perfectly clear. It actually comes via Scooper My Time to Shine H, and it's not from Kevin Feige or anybody official at Marvel Studios. Now, what he's reporting is that Cohen has shot some scenes for the upcoming Agatha series. Now, I don't know how far Agatha is in production, but it is distinctly possible he shot those scenes while on set for Ironheart. If he's just sprinkled into the Agatha series, it wouldn't take a lot of shooting time, and if there's some kind of prosthetics or makeup and they can do it all at one time, that would work very well for both parties. Now, common sense says Mephisto has some kind of ties to both Agatha Harkness and the other witches that are set to appear in that series, and I do believe he might be particularly upset with Wanda Maximoff after the destruction of the Darkhold. She's also rumored to appear in the series, but that has yet to be confirmed. Obviously, this would set the stage hugely for the future of the MCU, and Mephisto is a mainstay, so I'm really hoping this turns out to be true. He's had some pretty interactions with many other characters, including the Avengers, Loki, and even once stole Spider-Man's marriage. And speaking of Spider-Man, let's talk about Spider-Man 4. Now, it's been over a year since No Way Home was released, and we still got no official word about Spider-Man 4. There are multiple rumors whirling around that seem to indicate it could have a summer 2024 release. But let's be clear, Marvel and Sony have not confirmed this, and they've really offered no comment at all. Now, there has apparently been a lot of back and forth between Sony, Marvel, and Tom Holland, and it appears they might have all of those details worked out based on what Rothman just had to say. Now, recently he was talking with The Hollywood Reporter, and they asked Rothman if Spider-Man 4 is planned from the studio. His answer was short but concise. You bet. When you can expect it, I don't know. Serve no wine before it's time. Now, he kind of got that euphemism wrong, but I get what he's saying. Basically, they're holding back Spider-Man in order to make sure that the announcement is timed well and the release is timed well. And this makes a lot of sense for both parties, especially after considering how financially successful the last one was. Now, what this means for Spider-Man 4 and really another trilogy of films, we're going to have to wait and see. We all know Spider-Man is hugely important to the MCU and to Sony, so I know they have something in the works, but what they're doing yet, we don't know. There were multiple reports that Matt Gargan could be returning in Spider-Man 4 despite those other rumors of Kingpin. Now, he was played by Michael Mando in the first movie, and I have to say, as an underling to Wilson Fisk, aka Vincent D'Onofrio, that would make for one heck of a movie, and fans have been waiting for quite a long time for him to get his revenge. Remember, he showed up in that post-credit scene in the first Spider-Man movie, and he hasn't been seen since. He's a Marvel Comics staple and a mainstay of Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery, encountering Spider-Man on the streets of New York multiple times. Now, speaking of the streets of New York, let's talk a little bit about Daredevil. Now, recently, Charlie Cox has had a lot to say about Daredevil. We've gotten a ton of the character in recent months. He returned in Spider-Man No Way Home and played a sizable part in She-Hulk. He's also rumored to be part of the upcoming Echo series, so I suspect we'll be seeing Charlie very soon. Now, in a recent interview with NME, The actor talked about how he was over the moon to get a call from Kevin Feige to return to the project, and gave a very interesting detail about the production. Now, talking specifically about the show, he said that this has to be a reincarnation. It has to be different, otherwise what are we doing? My opinion is the character works best when he's geared towards a slightly mature audience. My instinct is that Disney Plus will be dark, but it probably won't be gory. Now, based on the statement from Cox, I actually think we're going to get something very reminiscent of Moon Knight, which was a pretty dark show and ended on a really dark note. I think that tone would work very well for Daredevil, and it does get me excited. Now, he did talk a little bit about the production schedule, and that's where it gets a bit interesting. He actually said in the interview that it will take up most of next year. During the conversation he said, and I quote, "They said to me, we're going to be shooting in 2023. And I said, great, when? And they said, all 2023. I start shooting in February and we finish in December. That's a huge wow. But remember, this is an 18-episode series, and it does make a lot of sense. They need quite a bit of time to shoot, but that's excessively long time, even more so than a movie schedule. Now, Charlie talked a little bit about that 18-episode count and why it means a lot to him. He actually said, I'm fascinated to discover why they've chosen to do 18. I'm imagining there's going to be an element to it that is like old school procedural shows, not necessarily a case of the week, but something where we go really deep into Matt Murdock, the lawyer, and get to see what his life is like. If that's done right, and he gets his hands dirty with that world, I think there's something quite interesting about that, to spend time in the superhero's day-to-day life, and you really earn the moments when he suits up. Now, I have to say, this makes a lot of sense for Marvel, and it's something that does connect with fans. When you think about it, one of the most popular scenes in all of the MCU is the Avengers party scene, where we just get to see people being casual. Seeing the casual part of Matt Murdock's life, combined with the superhero evenings, will be pretty good, and I suspect fans would like what's coming. Now, Daredevil Born Again won't hit Disney Plus until 2024, and if they're not wrapping up production until December, I think it's going to be probably 6 months into the year, but we'll have to wait and see. That year's going to be pretty full. We've got a rumored Spider-Man project, Captain America, and the Thunderbolts, so there's not a lot of wiggle room to make it fit. Speaking of the Thunderbolts, let's talk a little bit about Sentry. We have heard for a little while the Sentry could possibly be the main villain for the Thunderbolts. We talked about it on this channel a week or so ago, and it would make a lot of sense. Now, reports are suggesting that Valentina Allegra de Fontaine will be responsible for his creation. And if you know the backstory, you know about the Super Soldier Serum and the Golden Sentry Serum, which impacted the character. Now, it's unclear right now how this will fit into the film. I suspect the Sentry will be made by Valentina, and I'm unsure if she brings the team together to take on the Sentry, or the Sentry will actually be on the team and go rogue. I could totally see a situation where Red Hulk is the focus, and ultimately the Sentry goes off the rails, forcing the team to take him down and bring him to justice. I'm not really sure how this team stands up against a, quote, evil Superman, but it would make a lot of sense. Now, one of the reports that we're getting, though, is that the Sentry, after this film, will get his own solo project. Whether this is a Sentry movie, or a series or special presentation, that's still very unclear. Honestly, I think the Sentry would work great in a special presentation. Too much of the story might be too heavy on fans, but I think some kind of story to expand on his powers, the character's personal history, as well as the Void is an absolute need to make him work on screen. In the comics, Robert Reynolds, that's the Sentry's real name, was a meth addict, and he actually broke into a laboratory and ingested an experimental super soldier serum. This granted him the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns, and the Crook instantly became one of the world's most powerful superheroes. But it fractured his mind, and he battles something known as the Void, which is, in the comics, formidable enough to destroy everything. He makes for an interesting character because although he could be the world's greatest hero, he also could be one of the world's greatest dangers. And that's something that would be super cool to explore in a series or movie, but we're going to have to wait and see what Marvel Studios has in store. Honestly, the Sentry is an awesome character. Marvel has to get this right all the way through and through. There's a balance with him in the books that works, and if you don't get the right actor, I don't know how well the Sentry could be brought to life. He's so much more than evil Superman. He's not really even evil. He's just kinda messed up. And that might be the angle Marvel is working. Remember, Marvel has found that some of their most popular characters are kind of villains, but understandable villains. Think about what Tom Hiddleston has done with Loki. I think that's exactly what the chemistry they need for Sentry, so finding the right actor is key. Now, obviously, we're covering everything Marvel Studios on this channel moving forward, so make sure you hit your like and subscribe button so you get all the news. But until we know more, what do you guys think? How do you feel about the possibility of Mephisto showing up in Agatha, Coven of Chaos? And are you down for a solo Sentry movie? Tell me what you think in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure you hit like, click subscribe, and if you don't ring that bell, you won't get any updates. Peace.